The morning I came back from my brother's place in Tucson, I noticed the house felt different before I even stepped through the door. I'd been gone 11 days. My son had called me the night before, said everything was fine, that he and his wife were settling in nicely, that the hydrangeas out front were getting too much sun, and he'd moved the pot to the side yard. I remember thinking that was oddly specific. He'd never once mentioned the hydrangeas in 32 years. His mother planted those the spring before she got sick. He knew that. I should have known then. My wife Carol passed 4 years ago, pancreatic cancer. 6 weeks from diagnosis to the last morning I held her hand. After that, it was just me in this house. 3 bedrooms, a wide back porch, and a kitchen that smelled like her coffee every time I walked in, even long after she was gone. I don't know how to explain that. Grief has its own physics. My son, I'll call him my son, because that's what he is. That's all he is to me in this story. He'd been struggling financially. His wife had pushed them into a house they couldn't afford on the east side of town. New construction, granite countertops, the whole thing. When the variable rate adjusted and their payment jumped $400 a month, suddenly Dad's place started looking a lot more attractive. I didn't mind them moving in. I want to be clear about that. When he called and said they were underwater, I told him, "Come stay here. Get your feet under you. We'll figure it out." I meant it. Carol would have wanted that. She loved him more fiercely than she loved anything except maybe those hydrangeas. I set up the guest room for them. Fresh sheets, the good pillows from the linen closet, cleared half the closet space so my daughter-in-law would have room for her things. I even put a small table lamp on her side because I remembered she liked to read before bed. That's the kind of man I am. That's the kind of man Carol raised me to be. Then my brother called from Tucson. He'd had a mild heart episode. Nothing critical, but he was scared, and his kids were scattered across 3 states. He asked if I could come stay a while. I said yes without hesitating. He's 73 years old, and he's the only family I have left besides my son. I told my son and his wife I'd be gone about 2 weeks. I said, "The house is yours while I'm here. Don't worry about it. Just please water the hydrangeas on Tuesdays and Fridays." He said, "Of course, Dad." She said, "We'll take good care of everything." I believed them both. When I pulled into the driveway 11 days later, the first thing I noticed was that the hydrangeas had been moved back to the front. Not watered. Moved. Back to the direct sun. One of them was already looking pale at the edges. I stood there for a moment with my keys in my hand. Then I went inside. The living room looked the same at first, but there was a candle burning on Carol's side table, one of those heavy jar candles with a loud synthetic vanilla smell that Carol would have hated. Her reading glasses were gone from the little ceramic dish where she always left them. Not put away. Gone. The dish itself had been pushed to the back of the shelf behind a succulent I'd never seen before. I set down my bag. I walked down the hall. The guest room door was open. The bed was made up with different linens, a gray and white geometric pattern. My daughter-in-law's suitcase sat open on the floor. One of her cardigans was draped over the chair. I kept walking. My bedroom door was closed. I opened it. My dresser had been moved to the wall near the window. My nightstand, the one Carol gave me for our 25th anniversary, dark walnut with a small drawer where I kept her letters, had been pushed into the corner. There was a new one on what used to be my side of the bed. White. Cheap. One of those particle board things from a big box store. My clothes were gone from the closet. In their place, my daughter-in-law's dresses on the left, my son's shirts on the right. I stood in the doorway of my own bedroom and I looked at this for a long time. My things, my clothes, my books, my shaving kit, the small framed photo of Carol and me at Yellowstone were stacked in boxes in the hallway just outside the door. Neat boxes, I'll give her that. Labeled in black marker. Dodd's clothes. Dodd's books. Misc Dad. Misc Dad. I sat down on the floor of that hallway, right there between the boxes, and I put my face in my hands. Not because I was going to cry. I was past crying. I sat down because my legs went out from under me for a moment. 67 years old, 2 artificial hips, and the sight of those labeled boxes hit me harder than anything since Carol died. Then I heard the front door. "Dad, you're back early." My son came in, looking tanned, relaxed, carrying a paper bag from the sandwich place down the street. He smiled when he saw me. Then he saw where I was sitting. His smile changed, not gone, just recalibrated into something more careful. His wife came in behind him. She looked at me, then at the boxes, then back at me. And she smiled in a way that I can only describe as rehearsed. "We've been meaning to talk to you," she said. I stood up slowly. I didn't say anything. "The master bedroom just made more sense for us," she said. "It has the ensuite bath, and we both have to get up early for work. And the guest room is actually really comfortable. We tried it out and—" "When did you decide this?" I asked. My son set down his sandwich bag. "We talked about it, Dad. You were gone and we just thought." "When did you decide this?" I said again. He looked at his wife. "A few days after you left," she said. "We didn't think you'd mind. It's a lot of space for one person." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I looked at my son. He didn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I understood everything. Not just the bedroom. Everything. The way this was going to go, if I didn't change it right now. I picked up my bag from where I'd left it near the door. I walked back down the hall and I stood in the doorway of my own room. My dresser. My walnut nightstand pushed into the corner. The photo of Carol and me somewhere inside one of those boxes labeled Misc Dad. "I'd like my room back," I said. "Tonight." My daughter-in-law laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Dad, that's not really—" "I'm not your dad," I said. "I'm his father, and this is my house." My son started to say something. "I built the equity in this house over 30 years, I said. "Your mother and I. The deed has one name on it. That name is mine. This is not a conversation about feelings. This is a conversation about property." Silence. "I'm happy to have you both here," I said. "I meant that when I offered it. But not like this." My daughter-in-law's expression shifted. The rehearsed warmth fell away. What was underneath it was something harder and colder, and honestly, I was relieved to finally see it clearly. "You're being dramatic," she said. "Maybe," I said. "Move your things by tonight." I carried my bag to my brother's old boxes, the ones I kept in the garage from when I helped him move years ago. And I started taking my clothes back one item at a time, rehanging them in my closet. My daughter-in-law stood in the hallway and watched me. My son went to sit in the living room. That's the part that stayed with me, that he went to sit in the living room. He didn't say she had no right to do this. He didn't say, "I'm sorry, Dad." He didn't say anything at all. He sat on the couch in the house his mother and I spent 30 years paying off, eating his sandwich, waiting for the situation to resolve itself. That's when I started making phone calls. The first one was to my attorney, not because I was kicking them out. I wasn't, not yet, but because I needed to understand exactly where I stood. My attorney is a woman I've worked with for 15 years, sharp and no nonsense, and she spent about 45 seconds explaining that, as the sole owner, I had every right to set the terms of who stayed in my home and under what conditions. "Do you want to formalize this?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I want to know the steps if I need them." The second call was to my son. He was 20 feet away in the living room, but I called him. Something about the phone made it clearer, more real. He answered on the third ring, which told me everything about how he was handling this. "Dad, I need you to hear me," I said, "not as your roommate, not as the man whose house you're staying in, as your father." He was quiet. "What happened here while I was gone was not okay," I said. "Your mother's things were moved. Her glasses were removed from the dish she kept them in for 20 years. My nightstand was put in a corner. Boxes were made for my belongings in my own hallway, and one of them was labeled Misc Dad. I need you to understand what that felt like." A long pause. "She thought you wouldn't mind," he said. "She thought wrong," I said, "and you let her." Another pause, longer. "I didn't know about the nightstand," he said finally. "That's worse," I said. "That means you didn't ask." I hung up. The next 2 days were uncomfortable in the way that necessary things often are. My daughter-in-law went cold and performatively busy. My son moved around the house like a man waiting for a storm to pass. I cooked my own meals, watched my own television, and I moved Carol's glasses back to the ceramic dish on the shelf. On the third morning, I found a note on the kitchen table. From my daughter-in-law, handwritten, which surprised me. She wasn't the handwritten note type. It said, "I didn't mean to disrespect your space. I thought we were making the most of the living arrangement. I see that I overstepped." No apology exactly, but an acknowledgement, which from her I understood was the harder thing. I sat with that note for a while. I thought about Carol, what she would have done. She was more forgiving than me, always. She used to say, "People don't always know where the line is until they've crossed it." That doesn't mean they can't find their way back. I went to find my daughter-in-law. She was in the kitchen. "Thank you for the note," I said. She nodded without looking at me. "I want to be clear about something," I said. "You are welcome in this house, both of you. But this is not your house. It's my house, and it was your mother-in-law's house, and someday it may belong to my son. But right now it belongs to me. Do you understand the difference?" She looked up then. "Yes," she said. "I need to hear that you mean it." A pause, then "I mean it." My son came in from the back porch. He'd been listening. I could tell from the way he stood in the doorway. The same way he stood in doorways as a kid, when he was hoping to avoid being part of something while still knowing what was said. "Dad," he said. "I know," I said. "I should have said something when she—" "You should have," I said. "But here we are." He nodded. He looked like he was about 40 years younger in that moment. Like the boy who broke Carol's good serving platter and stood in the kitchen waiting to see if he was going to be forgiven. I picked up the coffee pot and poured myself a cup. "Sit down," I said, "both of you." We sat at that kitchen table, the three of us, in the house where I had eaten breakfast every morning for 30 years. The house where Carol used to leave notes in the cabinet above the coffee mugs. The house where my son learned to ride a bike in the driveway and cried in his room when his first girlfriend broke up with him, and called me at 2 a.m. from college because he'd failed an exam and didn't know who else to call. I told them the terms, not angrily, just clearly. My bedroom stays mine. Carol's things stay where they are. If anything else in this house gets moved, rearranged, or donated without my knowledge, they find somewhere else to live. Non-negotiable. In exchange, I would help them get back on their feet, properly. My attorney was going to draw up a short-term agreement, 6 months, renewable. So everyone knew what this arrangement was and wasn't. No ambiguity. No room for things to drift sideways again while I was out of town. My daughter-in-law agreed without arguing. I think the attorney part got through to her in a way that my words alone hadn't. My son reached across the table and put his hand over mine. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. That afternoon, I moved the walnut nightstand back to its place beside my bed. I took the photo of Carol and me at Yellowstone out of the box labeled Misc Dad and set it on top. She's laughing in that photo. We'd just seen a bison cross the road about 6 feet in front of our rental car, and she'd screamed and then immediately started laughing and couldn't stop. I took the picture because I wanted to remember exactly what her face looked like when she laughed like that. I looked at it for a long time. Then I went to water the hydrangeas. There's a walnut nightstand sitting beside my bed right now. It's nothing fancy. Dark wood, one small drawer, a little brass handle that Carol picked out herself. She gave it to me for our 25th anniversary. I used to keep her letters in that drawer. When I pulled it out of the corner and put it back where it belonged, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. And then I felt something quieter than anger. Something closer to clarity. Here's what I've learned. At 67, after everything, the way a person treats what belongs to someone else tells you exactly who they are when they think no one is watching. My daughter-in-law didn't move my nightstand into the corner because she was careless. She moved it because she'd already decided somewhere in her mind that I didn't matter enough to ask. That's not carelessness. That's a choice. And choices have weight. But I also have to be honest about my son. Because the nightstand isn't the whole story. The whole story is that he stood in that living room and ate his sandwich while his father sorted through boxes labeled MISCDA in the hallway. He knew. He just decided that keeping the peace with his wife mattered more than standing up for me. I raised him. I know what that cost him to choose, and I know what it cost him to watch him choose it. I'm not angry at him anymore. But I spent a long time sitting with the question of how a person gets to that place, where they can watch something wrong happen and just wait for it to resolve itself. And I think the answer is that somewhere along the way, he stopped asking himself what was right and started asking what was easier. Those are two very different questions. The first one requires something from you. The second one doesn't. What I did, what I had to do, wasn't complicated. I didn't need a speech. I didn't need to threaten anyone. I just needed to know exactly where I stood, say it clearly, and hold it. That took more out of me than I expected, not because it was hard to say, but because there's a part of you when you're a father that doesn't want to be in the position of having to say it at all. But here's the thing about letting it go unsaid. It doesn't go away. It just grows. And then one day you're living in a house you own, sleeping in the guest room, and your late wife's reading glasses have been put behind a succulent that nobody planted with any love. I moved those glasses back to the ceramic dish the same afternoon I got home. Carol used to say that the measure of a person isn't how they act when things are good. It's how they act when they're uncomfortable and no one they respect is watching. I've thought about that a lot this past month, about what it means to do the right thing. Not because someone will notice, but because you know what's right and you choose it anyway. About what it means to be steady when everything in you wants to either explode or collapse. About what it means to keep going. Keep cooking your own meals. Keep watering the hydrangeas. Keep putting the nightstand back where it belongs, even when the people you love have let you down. My son put his hand over mine at that kitchen table. He didn't have words, but the hand was there. I'm gonna hold on to that. The hydrangeas are doing better now. I moved them back to the side yard, out of the direct sun. They need the right conditions to bloom. Most things do.